Thank you. My question kind of follows on the last one, and it's got two parts. In the consciousness-only model, if we're all sharing the same dream, I think that's basically what it boils down to.
We're all...
Well, consciousness is...
There can be different dreams within the same consciousness.
Yes.
Yes.
Variations. There's all kinds of different forms of life on this planet, and I'm talking really about a human experience right now, and even within that, there are many different ones in different countries and cultures.
Yes.
But if we are all here in one room closing our eyes, we still believe that we're in the same space. That's part of the shared dream. What I'm getting at is there are a lot of things going on in the world that we're very concerned about: environmental deterioration, threats of war, and so on. If that is all kind of a shared dream, and maybe I'm projecting a little too far, but does that fit within this model of consciousness, that all of these things that we're worried about are in effect really just a dream experience that we are all sharing? If so, how do you know what is appropriate action to take in the world? And the second part to my question is, if all of time or apparent history is like a limitation of our mind to perceive, it's all happening or happened in the now. There's no linear time. That would imply that there's no cause and effect.
I'm afraid so.
And
yes.
Most of what we all do from day to day is based on a supposition that there is cause and effect. I do this so that there will be an outcome that I want.
Yes, the character in when you fall asleep at night and you find yourself walking on the streets of London, or with your friends on the streets of London, there seems to be cause and effect in the dreamed world. It seems very real in the dreamed world, but when you wake up, you realize there was no cause and effect. That doesn't invalidate the cause and effect that seemed to be real in your dream. In the dream it is real.
Yes.
And needs to be attended to appropriately. But the cause and effect is not it's not really the way things are. It's just the way things seem to be. It's not a reason for disrespecting cause and effect. So likewise, at this level, there does seem to be cause and effect, and it should be respected. But the cause and effect is not an accurate description of the way things are. If we want to know how the way things are, the mind through which things are known would have to lose its limitations. Yes, we've already seen that everything that is not known or experienced is known or experienced through the mind, and therefore shares the limitations of the mind. Therefore, if we really want to know how things are, we would have to the mind would have to lose its limitations. Only an unlimited mind would be able to know reality as it is. Yes? Mm-hmm. But the problem is that in unlimited mind, there is no form. That's pure consciousness. So when the mind loses its reality, it loses its limitations in order to see reality clearly, what does it find? Infinite consciousness. That's the reality of the universe, infinite consciousness, or God's infinite being in religious language.
So is it appropriate for us to be worried about the environment, for example, or is that all just something that's happening in a dream state?
Yeah, no,
and the dream could change tomorrow.
In your dream, be concerned about it. Yes, in the dream, at the relative level of the mind, there is a place for being concerned about the environment. I'm not suggesting that one stops acting in kind, loving, just ways, or that one trashes the environment because it's not made out of stuff called matter. After all, it's made out of consciousness, and consciousness is infinite. No, it's still appropriate at the relative level to take care of the environment or to take care of your loved ones or strangers. It's still appropriate.
So the appropriate thing would be to keep acting based on what we perceive until we perceive it differently.
The appropriate thing would be to understand with your mind and feel with your heart that everyone and everything is an expression of a single, infinite and indivisible whole, and act accordingly. If we did that, there would be no conflicts, there would be no war, there would be no environmental problem as a result of human activity. That's all that's necessary. Explore the reality of your experience. Discover that infinite consciousness is the reality of all experience, and live in a way that is consistent with that understanding. It's what St. Augustine meant when he said, love and do whatever you want. All that's necessary is to love. By love in this context, he didn't mean just an emotion. He said love is the absence of separation. So he said, realize that there are no separate things, no separate objects, no separate people, no separate selves, that these are all appearances. Their reality is a single, infinite, indivisible whole, whose common name is I, whose religious name is God's being, and whose scientific name is consciousness.
And it's indivisible in time and space.
No, time and space seem to divide
They don't really exist.
Well, go to your experience. I don't want just to discuss this theoretically with you. Tell us about the nature of the space of awareness in which your consciousness appears. Do you see that in which your experience appears? Do you see that first of all, that all your experience appears in and is known by the space of awareness?
Yes.
Now tell us about that space. Is it divisible or indivisible?
No, it's indivisible. It just is.
It just is. It has no parts in it. It's like let's move to the screen and the movie metaphor. The movie appears as 10,000 things, but when we go up to it and run our finger across it, we don't find 10,000 things. We don't find the divisions between objects. We find a single, indivisible screen. It's the same thing. Experience appears to be 10,000 things, but when we go up to it and run our finger across it, in other words, when we go really deeply into our experience and explore what is actually there, all that is ever found is the knowing of experience, the consciousness of experience, and that consciousness is not divided by its appearances, just as the screen is not divided by the characters in the movie.
Right.
Are you now having 10,000 experiences or
No.
one experience?
Just one.
Have you ever had more than one experience at a time?
No.
Would it be possible to have more than one experience at a time?
I can't see how.
Okay, so what is that one experience made of? If you are having an experience, you must be experiencing the stuff it is made of. What is that?
I'd call it awareness.
Perfect. That's all there is to experience, the consciousness of experience.
I like what you said earlier this morning about how consciousness veils itself from itself by being focused on other things.
Well, it veils itself, yes, it seems to veil itself from itself with its own activity. Just as we could say that in the same way that a screen seems to veil itself by assuming the form of the movie. The movie is not, this is not an old-fashioned projector, by the way, this is a laptop. It's the screen itself assumes the form of the movie. But in doing so, it seems to veil itself. The two-dimensional screen seems to become a three-dimensional landscape. In the same way that this zero-dimensional consciousness seems to become 4 dimensions of time and space. But this experience of time and space and everything that is in it is the activity of consciousness. That's all there is to our experience, the activity of consciousness. It is consciousness's own activity that seems to veil itself from itself.
Yes.
Until we cease seeing it like that. In which case, what was previously understood as a veiling of consciousness now becomes a revealing of consciousness. To begin with, the movie seems to veil the screen. Then we turn the movie off and we see, it's just a screen. But then when we turn the movie back on again, we don't allow the movie to eclipse the screen. We realize we have the ability to watch the movie but only see the screen. In this case, the movie doesn't veil the screen, it shines with the presence of the screen.
And however compelling the story may be, we never lose sight of the fact that it's
however,
showing on a screen.
However awful the movie is, you're only seeing a screen.
Right.
Or however pleasurable the movie is, we're only seeing the screen. So yes, however compelling experience may be, all there is to experience is the knowing of it, irrespective of its content. Is anyone here currently experiencing anything other than the knowing of experience? Has anyone here ever experienced anything other than the knowing of experience? Or not just those of us here, but could anybody ever experience anything other than the knowing of experience? How do we know there is anything apart from the knowing of experience? When I say the knowing of experience, I don't mean to imply that experience is one thing and the knowing of it is another. The screen is not one thing and experience of another. All there is to experience is knowing. In other words, how do we know that there is anything more than knowing? All there is to this experience is the consciousness of it, the knowing of it. Nobody has ever experienced, when I say nobody has ever, I don't mean to suggest that people experience knowing. I mean knowing in the form of each of us has never known anything other than knowing. When we fall asleep at night, all there is to the entire dream is the knowing of our own minds. Well, could it be that this is just a multi-dimensional, multimedia dream in the mind of infinite consciousness, made of infinite consciousness? Why not? After all, that is consistent with our experience. And imagine the implications of this. That all of this, although it appears as a multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves, is in fact a single, infinite, indivisible whole. Now, could it be that the experience of love and the experience of beauty are ways that, as human beings, we experience this infinite reality? After all, is not love the experience of the absence of separation between ourself and another? And is not beauty the experience of the absence of separation between ourselves and an object? In other words, are not the experiences of love and beauty the collapse of the distinction between ourself and objects and others? In other words, the revelation of a single indivisible whole. That's what love and beauty are. Intrusions of reality into our world.
And ways for awareness to know itself.
Reflections of awareness knowing itself at the level of our minds, yes.
Thank you very much.